The champagne glass in my hand was ice cold, but the heat rising in my chest felt like a brush fire. 200 people stood in the ballroom of the Drake Hotel. Crystal chandeliers shimmered above us like 1,000 watching eyes. My mother, Cynthia, stood at the microphone looking radiant in a dress that probably cost more than my first car. She raised her glass, her voice trembling with manufactured emotion, saying that for Ashley's wedding, she wanted to give something truly meaningful, something that represented the legacy of our family. Then she pulled a folded document from a velvet envelope and announced that as a wedding gift to Ashley and her fiancé, she was transferring the deed to the penthouse at the Kensington. My penthouse. The home I bought with my own money 3 years ago. The room erupted in applause. Ashley squealed, covering her mouth with hands that sparkled with borrowed jewelry. Her fiancé Julian, a slick man who always looked like he was selling something, pumped his fist in the air. I didn't move. I didn't blink. I just stood there watching my mother smile that perfect, practiced smile while she publicly stole $18 million of my life and handed it to my sister like a party favor. The audacity was absolute. She didn't even look at me. To her, I was just a spectator at my own execution. Before I tell you how I destroyed their entire celebration without spilling a single drop of my drink, drop a comment and let me know where you're listening from and what time it is for you right now. I want to see how far the story travels. I didn't scream. I didn't lunge across the table to snatch back what was mine. That's what amateurs do. That's what people who lose do. Instead, I took a slow sip of champagne and watched the show. My name is Madison, and I'm 29 years old. To my family, I'm the boring sister who works with numbers. To the federal government and the cartels I help dismantle, I'm a forensic accountant specializing in high-stakes money laundering. I don't look at life through emotions. I look at it through ledgers. And right now, the math wasn't adding up. I focused on Julian. He wasn't looking at Ashley with love. He was looking at that deed with hunger. His knuckles were white as he gripped the edge of the table. A single bead of sweat trickled down his temple despite the air-conditioned chill of the ballroom. A man marrying for love smiles at his bride. A man marrying for asset sweats. I pulled my phone from my clutch. My mother was busy beaming at the crowd, soaking in the admiration of her wealthy friends, telling them how generous she was to secure her daughter's future. She didn't notice me. She never did. 10 years ago, she sat me down at our kitchen table and told me she was draining my college fund because Ashley needed a new car to fit in with the right crowd. She said I was smart enough to get scholarships, but Ashley needed help. I worked 3 jobs to pay for my degree while Ashley wrecked that car in 3 months. They broke me then, forcing me to build my life from scraps. But today, I'm not the broke student begging for tuition. I'm the one auditing the banks they beg from. I unlocked my phone and accessed the secure portal I use for work. I didn't need to run a complex search. I just needed to confirm a suspicion. One tap on the Federal Watch List database. The screen flashed red. Julian Vane. Status: active investigation. Priority: high. I almost laughed. Of course, my mother hadn't just stolen my property. She was attempting to launder it directly into the hands of a man currently being watched by 3 different agencies for wire fraud. It wasn't a wedding gift. It was a transaction. Ashley's debt, $450,000 in credit card bills and failed influencer startups, was the liability. My penthouse was the asset being used to balance the books. Julian wasn't marrying Ashley. He was marrying my equity. I looked up. Julian was reaching for a pen, his hand shaking slightly. He wanted to sign that transfer immediately to make it legal before anyone asked questions. He thought he was closing the deal of a lifetime. He thought he was smart. I took another sip of champagne, feeling the bubbles burst on my tongue. Anger is a useless emotion in my line of work. It clouds judgment. What I felt was colder, sharper. It was the feeling of a steel trap clicking into place. They thought I was the victim here. The silent, invisible bank account they could raid whenever they pleased. They didn't realize that for the last 5 years, while they were playing dress up, I was building a $32 million empire on the bones of men smarter and more dangerous than Julian. I watched my mother pat Ashley's cheek, whispering something that made them both giggle. They looked so happy, so secure. They had no idea that the woman standing 10 feet away wasn't just a sister. I was the auditor, and I was about to close their account for good. I didn't have to wait long. Cynthia found me near the raw bar, her smile tight as a snare drum. She gripped my elbow with fingers that felt less like a mother's touch and more like a police escort, staring me into a quiet alcove behind a pillar, away from the prying eyes of the society photographers she'd hired. "You're making a face," she hissed, her voice low and dangerous. "Fix it. People are watching." "I'm watching too," I said calmly. "I'm watching you give away my property." She didn't flinch. She didn't look ashamed. Instead, she looked at me with a terrifying, righteous pity. This was the moment I realized I wasn't dealing with a simple thief. I was dealing with a martyr. "Madison, look at you," she said, gesturing vaguely at my dress, my jewelry, my existence. "You have everything. You have millions sitting in accounts doing nothing. You have success. You have stability." She leaned closer, her perfume cloying and sweet. "Ashley has nothing. She has $400,000 in debt and a reputation that's hanging by a thread. Do you know what it's like for a mother to watch one child feast while the other starves?" This was it. The parasite's logic. She wasn't stealing. In her mind, she was correcting a cosmic error. She believed my success was a communal resource, a family pot that I had selfishly hoarded. To her, my hard work wasn't mine. It was simply luck that I hadn't shared yet. She truly believed that stripping me of my home to fund Ashley's fantasy life was a moral act. "So you stole my house to balance the scales?" I asked. "I redistributed family assets," she corrected, her eyes hard. "You don't need that penthouse. You're never there. You live in your office. Ashley needs a start. She needs this marriage to work. Julian comes from money. Madison, if she brings this asset to the marriage, she's set for life. I did this for her. And if you weren't so selfish, you would have done it yourself." She reached into her purse and pulled out a pen. "Now you are going to go over there. You are going to hug your sister and you are going to witness that deed transfer. You are going to smile and you are going to validate this gift because if you cause a scene, if you embarrass us in front of these people, I will never forgive you." I looked at the pen, then at her. I felt the old urge to beg for her love, to apologize for existing. But then I remembered the red screen on my phone. "Active investigation." "You're right, Mom," I said. My voice was smooth, devoid of any tremor. "Ashley needs this. Julian needs this." Her shoulders dropped. Relief washed over her face. She thought she had won. She thought I was the same doormat I had been at 19. She didn't see the wolf baring its teeth. "Good girl," she whispered. I took the pen. "Let's get this signed. We wouldn't want any legal ambiguity." I walked out of the alcove and straight toward the head table. Julian was hovering over the document, hesitation still twitching in his hand. He needed a push. He needed to believe the con was solid. "Julian," I said, pitching my voice to carry just enough for the immediate circle to hear. I smiled, the kind of warm, supportive smile that forensic accountants use right before they seize a yacht. "Mom told me the news. It's incredibly generous." Julian looked at me, searching for a trap. He saw only a sister-in-law playing along. His greed overrode his caution. "It really is," he said, relaxing. "You should sign it. Lock it in. Properties like that carry a lot of weight." He laughed a nervous, wet sound. "You're right." He pressed the pen to the paper. I watched the ink flow. I watched him sign his name next to the forged signature of my LLC's manager. I watched him legally accept an asset that was currently the subject of a federal freezing order. He kept the pen. "Done." "Done," I echoed. The trap wasn't just set. It had just snapped shut on his neck. Cynthia clapped her hands, a sharp, jubilant sound that signaled the waiter to refill the champagne. To the happy couple, she announced, her voice pitching up with triumph. "And to their beautiful new home at the Kensington. May this be the foundation of a prosperous life." The guests raised their glasses. To the couple. "Actually," I said, my voice cutting through the cheers like a diamond cutter through glass. "You might want to hold that applause." The room went quiet. Not the respectful silence of a toast, but the confused, Heavy silence of a train wreck in slow motion. Cynthia turned to me, her eyes narrowing. Madison, sit down. Don't ruin this. I'm not ruining it, I said, placing my phone on the center of the table. I'm just documenting it. I tapped the screen. The speakerphone engaged. Agent Miller, are you there? A voice crackled through the phone. Deep, authoritative, and terrifyingly calm. We're here, Madison. We have visual confirmation on the signature. Julian froze. The pen rolled out of his hand and clattered onto the china. Who is that? Cynthia demanded. That is Special Agent Miller of the FBI's Financial Crimes Division, I explained as if I were introducing a caterer. And you, Julian, just signed a federal confession. What are you talking about? Cynthia hissed, lunging for the phone. I blocked her hand. You see, Mom, you were right about one thing. I don't live in that penthouse. I never have. I bought that building 3 years ago under an LLC called Argus Holdings. It's a shell company, a honeypot designed specifically to track the movement of illicit offshore funds. Specifically, funds moving through Julian's import business. The color drained from Julian's face so fast it looked like a magic trick. I didn't steal your house, Madison, Cynthia stammered, trying to regain control of the narrative. You forged a signature on a quitclaim deed to transfer a property owned by a federal cooperating witness, I corrected. That's wire fraud, Mom. That's a felony. And Julian, by signing that acceptance, he didn't just accept a wedding gift. He accepted an asset from a company he knows is under sanction. That's money laundering. That's receipt of stolen goods. That is a RICO predicate offense. The room was spinning for them. But for me, everything was perfectly still. This was the rational absurdity. The absurdity that I would let my mother steal an $18 million asset was balanced by the rationality that the asset was never a home. It was evidence. Julian stood up, his chair scraping violently against the floor. Panic had replaced greed. This is insane, he shouted, his voice cracking. He grabbed the deed from the table and ripped it in half. Then in quarters, he frantically shredded the document, throwing the confetti onto the table. There. It's gone. No deed. I didn't sign anything. You have nothing. He thought destroying the paper saved him. I calmly pulled a small book from my clutch. You can shred paper, Julian. You can't shred a notary log. I opened it, showing the page. Date, time, purpose, his name. The transfer was registered this morning. The deed was just a formality. You didn't sign paperwork. You signed your warrant. He didn't look at the book. He looked past me, trapped. I saw the agents reflected in his eyes before he felt them. Agent Miller stepped forward, his presence filling the room with inevitable finality. Julian Vane, you're under arrest for money laundering, wire fraud, and RICO conspiracy. The handcuffs clicked. The fight drained out of him. Then Miller turned to my mother. Cynthia Davis, we'll need you for questioning regarding a forged instrument. The room backed away. Phones came out. She wasn't powerful anymore. She was tomorrow's headline. She lunged at me. Fix this. Tell them it's a mistake. I took a slow sip of champagne. I audit criminals, Mom. I don't defend them. I walked to the valet. She chased me down, begging, then blaming, then raging. UOS. I caught her wrist mid-slap. I don't owe you anything. Move. She did. For a moment, I considered saving them. I could have, but she wasn't sorry, only caught. So I chose survival. Goodbye, Mom. I got in my car, locked the doors, and drove away. I went to my office, not home. I deleted their numbers. I blocked them both. The silence wasn't empty. It was mine. For the first time, I wasn't waiting for the bill. I was free.